I have a 74 map, but it's really scary. It's really badly rolled, so I'm just gonna do the 72 map, and you know, it'll give a slightly better idea of the damage of the build. So here we are in a 72. We have monsters poison on hit, extra damage from unique boss, 2 unique bosses, rogue exiles. So there are no modifiers in here that are going to slow my clear speed for the most part, and just make it more dangerous. As we can see, once you start to get rolling on the frenzy charges, the clear speed of the build just starts going up substantially. That was an exile. Just died rather quickly. That was actually a great example. So I was about to lose frenzy charges. Didn't quite hit this pack fast enough. Popped Doja's elixir. Got me that extra 7 seconds. Got me to the next pack. Doja's this back up. It's a good cycle. And it gives you that, you know, free endurance charge, which is nice. The build doesn't benefit from power charges in any way, shape, or form, but, you know, it's there. So, definitely nice. I personally don't play like this all that frequently, but whenever I hit the boss, that was both bosses by the way, I pop Ball Grace. I typically don't normally play unless it's an especially dangerous pack, you know, colossal skeletons or giant furry monstrosities. Pretty much anything I know is going to hit for a lot of damage. I'll pop Ball Grace on, but most of the time I just save it, but you can keep it up pretty consistently if you get a solid amount of packs going on. I'll show you a great example. So, find an exile, find a pack, didn't quite have the frenzy charges that I wanted, but wasn't that big of a deal. You know, after a few flickers, you're going to start generating the frenzy charges. Going to be comfortable. Not gonna do vegan, because I don't really feel like that'll serve much of a purpose. The single target is pretty good, and just me obliterating that ghost, I think, sort of helps to showcase that a bit, as well as, you know, the dual bosses that exploded. 2 rogue exiles that, you know, you obliterated. The damage is very solid. We're sitting at 6k average damage and 7.87 attacks per second. That's without Flame Golem up, that's without, you know, a solid rallying cry, like a decent rallying cry. Gives you another 500 average damage. I've gotten more than that before. Okay, that's 6.7, pop a flask, 7.5. Yes, 7.5k average damage with just Rallying Cry and a flask up, 7.87 attacks per second. You do the math. It's pretty solid damage. And it's an RT build. And it makes use of very cheap, unique Oro Sacrifice. You can make the argument that Doriani's Invitation is not cheap, but that isn't really increasing the damage substantially of the build at all. 20% extra fire damage, which is the minimum roll, by the way, or 23%. That's not the minimum roll, but it's close. giving you 200 more average damage. I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at, certainly, but it's not a huge thing. The additional ignite chance is not up all the time, as we can see. It's not required to make the build work. Mokus are pretty cheap. They're not required, but I definitely recommend that until you get enough ignite chance to just run, a dual Mokus. You can ditch one of them later if you get like a perfect roll on one for ignite chance, and then just want to run better rare jewelry. And if you get, really well rolled jewels, you can ditch them for, even better jewelry. The point really is that the build has quite a high ceiling that can be reached. All the different modifiers you can throw on it, the Cry, the Flame Golem, the Flask, better jewelry. I mean, there's just a lot that you can do with this build, and it has a lot of stages of development that can be reached. The Dorianis is not necessary. You can get this build off the ground for a few chaos pretty easily, and then you can scale it with, a few exalts just as easily if you want to. The Dorianis is a great example. You can get expensive rare jewelry. It's another example. Better gloves, etc. But all the uniques in this build, for the most part, are rather cheap. You're not gonna spend a whole lot for a 3 dragons, most likely, or an Oros, Dark Rays. I saw for 1 chaos on Tempest yesterday. Dorianis are gonna run you a fair amount, but really, like I said, you can ignore it unless you have one. Moku's pretty cheap. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. Say that map's pretty much mostly cleared. Took maybe 5 minutes. Bogs really aren't the best, mostly because they're dark. Things come out of the ground. Sort of have to deal with that, but I feel like that adequately showcased, the pack clearing and single target damage potential of the build. When all of our buffs were up, we were running, pretty high damage, over 50k. I've personally broken in a perfect scenario with this build over 60k with this current gear and gem setup. Could be done better. I think you could realistically hit 75k DPS in this build, with all buffs up, better jewelry, better gem setup. Just with the 6 link alone, the damage is going to go up significantly with the added fire penetration, faster attacks, etc. So yeah, those are pretty much all the things I wanted to discuss. If you're still here, then you're braver than most. Thanks for watching and listening, and hope you learned something. Feel free to add any sort of comments or discussion points in the comments, and I'll try and get to them. I'm going to probably start working on a forum post sometime in the future, and do a written out version of this guide, and hopefully any points I didn't discuss will be brought up there. Thanks again.